r/AskReddit, what innocent question that someone asked you crushed you a little? My mom accidentally called me after about 10 years of not talking. I answered all ready for a serious conversation. When I answered, she was like, "Wait, who's this?" I say, "Hey mom, it's Fraggle Rocks." Her reply is, "What hurt? Fraggle Rocks who? Why are you calling me mom?" She was so drunk/high she didn't recognize her own daughter's name. Table for how many? The first time we went out for dinner after my dad completed suicide. That one hit like a truck. When will you get better so you can play with us? My niece, who was too young to understand what disabled meant. She's older now and understands I will never get better. And we have adapted playtime to do things I can handle as well. But that broke my heart. A friend looked at me and said, "I know we've talked about it before, but how did you break your nose?" I've never broken my nose, this is just how it looks. My son undergoing chemo and radiation treatment for a bone marrow transplant. People, meaning well of course, would always ask, "How's your son doing?" I'd always have to fake a smile and give some shallow hopeful answer, "He's fine. He's a fighter," but deep inside the question crushed me every time. No, he was suffering. Teetered on the brink of life and death. He was not fine, and every time I heard that question I was reminded of it and had to swallow the pain. My son has since recovered, but it was a very tough time. I teach first grade and was talking about how I've been married for 5 years. One student asked, "How could you not have a baby by now?" Not wanting to explain multiple miscarriages and IVF to a classroom of 6-year-olds, I said, "Being around all of you makes my heart so full that I don't think I have room in my heart for a baby." They all smiled. I smiled too. I've learned from my experience to never ask couples when/if they want to have a family. Hurts. I went to get a haircut for my fiance's funeral. It was Friday. He had died on today. My stylist, all bubbly, said, "It's been a while. The last time I saw you, you were just about to move in with your boyfriend. How's it going?" The word stuck, and I kind of rasped it out. Honestly though, her reaction was so wonderful. She was behind me and just put her hands firmly on my shoulders and looked me in the eyes in the mirror. No shock, no stupid platitudes, just silent, genuine empathy. The rest of the haircut was pretty quiet, but she did everything so, lovingly, and didn't make a big deal out of it when I cried a little. A waiter asked me if my wife was pregnant once. She was just bloated from chemo side effects. Crushed me. So glad she didn't hear. She couldn't have had kids and she passed 2 years back. Edit. I just wanted to say thanks to those who commented on this. It wasn't expected. We went to the place a lot, so as a young couple he had seen over the years, it was probably a reasonable thing to assume. Also, I'm doing okay. We knew she was terminal for most of our relationship. We probably did more in those few short years than we would have normally. It hurts a lot still, but I know I had her everything I possibly could in that time. Just remember to live life like each day could be your last, people. Mend that broken friendship. Ask out that girl. Follow your dream. 30. What's on her face? Mom. Little girl, I used to be a cashier and had terrible acne at the time. Rough night last night. Usually asked with a big smile. I was asked that all the time when I was younger because I had a really obvious tremor. Thing is, I did not drink or do drugs at all, and I had no idea what was wrong with me. I was eventually diagnosed with Graves' disease and treated for it, but I still have a bit of a tremor. I could never imagine getting cancer at such a young age. How are you this strong/brave/do you stay so positive? I've stopped counting the amount of people, especially working at the hospital, I'd expect a bit more sensitivity from them, that have asked me that. Yes, I'm mid-20s, but it's not a choice that I'm staying strong. It's fucking survival. Every time someone asks me that, it feels like getting punched. Just happened recently actually. A few years ago I had a pretty awesome life. I was married. My husband and I were trying to have kids, and when I needed a car we just got me and sub in anticipation for needing it for kids. He had 2, and we planned to have 2 to 3. Well, things didn't work out, and he ended up dying from drinking himself to death in January, and between that and 2 miscarriages, an ectopic and an IVF cycle that failed, I'm slowly coming to the realization that I'll never be a mother. It's painful to say the least. The kid I nanny for was sitting in my car and we were discussing his day when he says, "Nanny, why do you have such a big car when it's on you?" I wanted to cry right there on the spot. It just really stung. But instead I told him it was because I knew I would be watching him and I needed a car big enough for him, which seemed to placate him. And he then started discussing Batman with me. I got asked why I wouldn't stand up straight for a photo. I have kyphosis, and I'm standing up as straight as I can. Why don't you ever go out? Well, because I don't have anyone to go out with. Damn. Specialist appointment and they did the normal thing of checking contact details. They asked if the contact number and details for my wife were still correct. I started crying. My wife passed away this time 12 months ago. Surprising how much one simple question asked in total innocence can bring you to your knees. I had no friends in summer school and a girl asked me if I had any friends. Like straight up, "Do you have any friends?" Then became friends with me, but still. Back in 6th grade we were watching a film in my science class. Of course, my table took this opportunity to just chat. Don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but my friend finds out I didn't know the word vagina, knew the body part, just not the term. I didn't get to explain that to the table because his immediate response was, "Didn't your dad ever have the talk with you?" I spent the rest of the period with my head down crying. My friend kind of freaked out. He demanded that no one at the table say anything sex related because he thought that maybe I was crying cause I wasn't mature enough to talk about that stuff yet. I told him later that night on RuneScape that my dad had been arrested about a year or 2 ago and that was the reason for my reaction. I'm 25 now and definition over it, lol. But at the time, that question destroyed me. It was good though, he was the first person I talked about it with, and it brought us closer at the time. So when are you going back for your master's degree? I was so proud of getting my bachelor's and had no intention of going back because how rough school was for me. I worked in retail when I was younger and people would always be like, "Oh, do you have any ideas for Father's Day? What did you get your dad?" My dad committed suicide when I was 16. They had no way of knowing that, but damn if it didn't hurt. God, this reminds me of a time I was an idiot. I was cashiering, and we had some red roses that were pretty popular. I rang up some lad dressed quite nice purchasing the roses and I asked if they were for anyone special. Yeah, no. Well, no, they were for his recently passed dad's grave. I apologized so hard, but he said it was fine, and he's doing well, but it was time to change the flowers. Shut me the frick up real quick. When I was 13 my mom got a divorce from a man, who I can only refer to as a step monster. I worked all summer to save up money, since we didn't have a lot, and I was worried we wouldn't have enough to pay the bills. I ended up having a few dollars left over and wanted to buy my mom a gift, and she mentioned she needed a new watch for her birthday. I went to the jeweler and got a $100 gold Citizen Evo Drive watch. It was functional and it looked really nice. When I gave it to her, her first response was, "Thanks honey, did it come in silver?" I was crushed. Insult to injury, she started dating a guy around the same time, and he bought her a crappy silver watch. She ended up wearing his over mine 18 years later, and it still hurts when I think about it. Edit. I didn't realize this was going to resonate with so many people. Thanks everybody for the kind words, but I promise I didn't let it ruin my life. Just one of those memories that sticks with you. If/when I ever have kids, I know to never brush off their gift. I can't imagine having my child feel the same way I did as for all the awards. I laugh to see so many silver awards due to the irony. Don't worry, I'll keep them all. I work at a pretty boring convenience store and my neighbor down the street, young maybe 12 to 13-year-old kid was there. Good kid, usually hangs out there and talks to me. One day I was drawing cartoons for him by his request, and he said, "Wow, you're really good at making cartoons. Why don't you just quit this job and become an animator or make comic books?" Really bummed me out cause when I was his age that's all I wanted to do, but never was financially ever given even the slightest opportunity to go to school for something like that, and I'll never have the motivation for stuff like that, working 50+ hour weeks in retail hell just to barely make ends meet. Plus I remember being his age and thinking people could still do whatever they want when they grow up. Last week, my son's therapist asked me how I was holding up with everything that has been happening, and if I was remembering to take time to care for myself while I was working on helping my son. I imagine she was thinking I would just give her my usual, "Oh, I'm plugging along" response. Instead, I broke down and started sobbing and word vomited how bad shit is and how hard a time I'm having. And what a selfish piece of shit I feel like for having the audacity to feel so bad when my son is having such a hard time. Not my best moment. Someone once asked me, "Don't you want to be a mom?" Yes, I do. But as I'm single, over 40 and not rich, that's probably not going to happen. And it devastated me. I had to say yes, I'd love that, and then excuse myself to go home and cry. "When will we dig up Dad?" asked by my almost 5-year son. He's never met him as Dad died 3 months before birth. This goes along the question, when will Dad stop being dead? One day I said to my mom I was going out with friends and she asked, "You have friends?" I kid was a joke, but damn, I felt that so hard.